Hello, friends. Welcome back again. And in this session, we can cover a few more things regarding perception. See if you're able to recall what we have actually seen regarding perception in the last class. We understood what exactly is perception. We called a few definitions as such, and we have tried to relate perception to a few more examples. Right? So, this is all what we have done. And in this session, what we would like to do is we can actually go through uh, the process of perception, the various steps it goes through, and also we can try to understand what exactly is a perceptual organization is. A perceptual organization is a different one, and we should know how is that Gestalt, a research organization in France, defined perception organization. So perceptual organization and what are the types in that, we can actually go through that. But before we do that, let me recall one example what all of us know about and what all of us are actually, you know, interested in looking for that. So all of us know that this year the pandemic has hit us hard. There is no summer as such, and during summer it's a very favorite game for all of us. The IPL used to come, and most of us used to get glued to the TV sets. Our favorite teams were playing the matches, cricket matches. And mind you, why all of us are, you know, bent on watching IPL matches? You ask any kid, he will tell you they watch IPL because, and they're so glued to the TV, they're so concerned about the IPL because they can see big hitting. They can see a lot of cricketers coming around, playing huge shots, clearing the ground, and getting success. So it has become a favorite sport for many, enthusiasts, for many young kids, primarily because of the kind of six hitting involved in that, of the kind of adventurism the IPL has brought into cricket. So otherwise, it is just like any other cricket game, any other one-day game or a test match game. People would not have thought about that separately. But the T20 matches made all the difference. The IPL exactly was one of the biggest revenue earners for India, BCCI, and the Indian crowd. A lot of cricketers are involved in that. And the reason being, many people across the world are getting connected to the concept. Now, after the IPL started, many other countries actually started their own cricket league. The West Indian Cricket League is, for example, has become very popular. English, of course, they do have their own counties, and in the counties they used to play a lot of T20s, and it is a culture. So the culture is there for a long time. They're used to it. And in Australia, in Sri Lanka, even in Pakistan, so people are playing the T20 format and creating a uh, club level cricket tournament in almost all the countries, and it has become very popular with all the people, primarily because people connected to themselves. People connect the IPL to some of the adventurous things what they can see in cricket. They can say absolutely mad kind of hitting which takes place, which normally we cannot see in any ordinary match. And you can see mind-boggling scores being registered in a 20 hours match. And these kind of things are possible. That is how IPL is getting registered in the process of perception, in the process of perception as a perceptual organization. Many people will try to connect to IPL because they feel they're a part of it. Now, in order to look at this at in depth, we can go for screen sharing and we can see some of the facts over there and we can try and understand the process. Then go into in-depth details about perceptual organization and understand about those details. Let's go for screen sharing. So people, the process of perception actually covers four steps as we have seen previously. The first step is called as exposure. Second step is about attention. Third step is termed as interpretation. The fourth step is it goes into memory. Now, what exactly does the first step means to us? Exposure. What are we getting exposed to? And mind you, we are studying this chapter perception, not in HR, not in other subjects, but we are dealing with this as part of your consumer behavior process, right? Thereby, we are trying to understand how a consumer is trying to perceive something and how is that a consumer's perception can be altered. So, this is what we are looking at. Mind you, when you are trying to understand about consumers' perception, a consumer's perception is always checked in by the kind of exposure what is exposed to. For example, if a consumer is exposed to a lot of information apart from the kind of goods whatever he is literally looking at, it may confuse him. So, for example, you go to a grocery store, you are looking at a particular item. For example, you want to buy a mobile phone, and previously, before starting from home, you gathered all the facts regarding Samsung. You went over there, the no, that salesman shows you a lot of models. He shows you Oppo, he shows you Apple, he shows you Samsung, and again, a lot of other models, Viva, and a lot of other models. So, what exactly happens to you then? You are exposed to four different brands which are not similar to each other. Each one carries its own strength, each one carries its own negative things. So, what happens to a customer then? You're a consumer, you want to buy a good, you went with the option, with the intent of buying a good, and the moment you stepped into the store, you faced something that is, you faced a lot of options. You're exposed to a lot of information. What happens to you? Also, let me add one more point to this. You took your friend along with you. Remember, you went with the option of buying for a Samsung mobile. That is your intent. You went with a particular motive to buy a Samsung mobile only. And once you entered in the store, you had the option of buying four different brands, and the brands were displayed to you, the models were explained to you, and the sales guy is presenting all the options to you. Along with that, you carried a friend of yours. Let's imagine the friend of yours is a vivid brand ambassador for Vivo. He likes the brand very much. So he starts presenting his own opinion. He starts pushing information regarding the Vivo brand into your brain. Already you are confused. Already you are having different options before you. Your intent on buying a mobile phone made of Samsung. Now, your friend is a genuine mobile user, is presenting to you another brand that is Vivo, and you are trying to register all the facts. My dear friends, at this stage, what is happening to you as a consumer can be termed as a process called exposure. So, what exactly are you getting? You're facing. You are exposed to different types of information. You're exposed to different kinds of information which is being pushed to you, or you are receiving it. Somehow, you're facing it. Right? So, if that is the thing, let's go to the second part of it. That is the attention part of it. Now, remember as a consumer, you went with the motive of buying Samsung Mobile because you already registered some facts regarding that. You're hell bent on buying the same model only. You went with that. Now, after going to the store, you faced several information, several facts regarding that thing, the mobile, and all the facts when they're thrown to you. Are they catching your attention? No, they may not. Because the facts which are being thrown to you, which are being presented in front of you, and the facts which are pushed across by your friend may not exactly gather the kind of attention what they require. What catches your attention is that more details regarding the Samsung mobile that the salesman is presenting to you. You will be very keen to listen, very keen to understand, very keen to evaluate, gather information regarding Samsung mobiles. So, all the information that the salesman is presenting regarding other brands, you are not exactly receiving it. You are trying to pay attention to it, or you are just trying to gather much information regarding the Samsung mobile. So, when the salesman actually starts presenting this model, you'll be going for it. You'll be trying to listen and gather all the facts. This is what happens to you when you are going through the attention phase of it. It's a very important phase as such. Now, once that attention part is over, once salesman did all his best to push across information regarding Samsung mobiles, all the facts were registered. Then the facts are gathered and interpreted in the manner you want them. See, the Samsung mobiles may be consisting of several models. Can you afford to buy all the models? Can you afford to go for a model which is beyond your pocket size, beyond your capacity? No. So you are interested in a selected few options, in a select few models which are being displayed there, and regarding which information was already taught to you. So these are the models you'll be concerned about that. And basically, during the interpretation stage, whatever is happening is you are trying to gather information regarding a few particular models which you are impressed. You are impressed primarily because it suits you. The cost may be of good to you. Maybe the model and the technology involved with the model they're good to you. Maybe the model is a decent one and looking good, the appearance is good, and it look trustworthy to you. So you go for it, right? But during the process of interpretation, what exactly happened there is you are trying to gather all the information that is presented to you and which impresses you, which you are already connected to you. You are trying to gather information regarding that, not all the information. Even though information is being presented in bundles, you avoid it and you gather particular part in which you are interested. And those facts are being registered in the memory and they will be recollected at a later point of time whenever it is necessary. My dear friends, all the process, all the four steps what I have read to you and given you examples regarding, they're called as a perceptual process. Now, it always makes a good, interesting thing to understand these things and to present these facts in the form of a diagram or in the form of a table. So, whenever you are answering a question regarding the process of perception, please make sure that you are representing the steps involved in this, the format of a table or in the format of a diagram, and add this in the prior to you answering the question. Before you start explaining all these things, please add the diagram. It makes your answer look decent, and it is read worthy. Thereby, the presenter will be taken to a different platform and the kind of marks what he can get will be different. So this is my best advice for you. What I can do is you present these facts in the form of a diagram and please add the diagram before you start your answer. Makes plenty of good sense. It makes good for reading also. So it's a interesting thing to do. Now, secondly, if you start understanding about the concept of perceptual organization, see, actually, it is perceptual organization is a term which is coined by a institute. It is a German institute and very popular in France. And what this guys has actually brought into force is something called as a perceptual organization. So, what does the institute deal with? The institute is actually a psychology institute. This is school of psychology, and what they do is they actually differ people, divide people into different groups, different sects as such. So, what exactly are they divided into? They are divided into several states and several categories, such as ethical ground, grouping, closure, and stereotypes, impressions, people who jump into conclusions, and halo effect, right? So these are the categories what they were divided into. Now, let us actually try to understand about this in depth. Now, one of those first kind of differentiation is done basically depending on the physical appearance. So, what exactly happens when somebody looks at you? It says people tend to attribute the qualities they associate with certain people to others who may resemble them. For example, attractive models are more persuasive and have a more positive influence on consumer attitude and behavior than do average looking models. It can be a good thing. And my dear friends, I would like to quote an example here, which I've actually seen. I'm a YouTuber, as all of you know. I present a lot of videos on YouTube. I do a lot of content building, and all the content building is thrown in my YouTube video. My YouTube video gets moderate to less number of views. Whereas recently I came across a video which was done by a very good looking lady. And the lady I have actually watched with interest because I was very keen to know what exactly she is presenting. The lady came across, spent a few minutes going across the stage around the board without doing anything, without touching the board, without touching the paper or anything. She addressed people in different languages. She said, "Good afternoon, guys, good afternoon, girls." And she said, "Sat Sri Akal, welcome all." Like that, she spent around 5 minutes of time, very valuable time, right? Later on, she posed a query to one or two guys who are watching her online and to all the cameramen who are taking her pictures and video shooting her. And she gave them a broad smile. And I believe one of the viewers actually made a comment that her smile is looking gracious. So she addressed it, she thanked him very robustly across the stage. Like that, at least 20 minutes of the valuable time is being spent only to address this sex. So I believe she was more or less acting like a brand ambassador for the channel, not contributing any damn thing towards education. That's what exactly the physical appearance say. So, in that video, what I came to know is that the physical appearance of the tutor is making a lot of impact on the viewers, not the content, not the content what she's trying to speak, not the quality of the content what the reader or that presenter is trying to offer. That does not have a meaning for many people. So that's what exactly the physical appearance says over there. Many a time, people do gain an impression because of the physical appearance, what they look at, what they perceive. Does it need to be true? Does it need to be good? Is it okay to have such impression? Well, that is not answered now. We are only saying that physical appearances do have a bearing on people's perception. There behind it, right? The second stem, or second kind, is something called as a stereotype. There are many people whom we normally call as stereotypes. In fact, if you want to understand what exactly a stereotype is, I've, I've loaded a beautiful animation video made by me, and the animation video is actually loaded into your Google Classroom. Only today morning I have done that. I'm not sure how many of you are actually going through the video, the Google Classrooms, and I'm making sure that I am loading value loaded content. Means whatever content I'm trying to load in that Google Classroom certainly contains a meaning for me. So I'm the fond hope that many of you are going to look into that, gather an opinion, gain a perception regarding all these things. Whatever I could not present in my video sessions or the live classes are actually taught to you or brought to you in the Google Classrooms. Please don't neglect them. Do make it a point to go through these classrooms. You will find something of interest over there, right? Now let's exactly see what does a stereotype means. See, it reads that individuals tend to carry pictures in their minds of the meaning of various kinds of stimuli. See, a stereotype can be someone who acts or picturizes, behaves based on the kind of information or the kind of you know receptions already gained in his mind. He is not going to form an idea currently about the previous information loaded into his brain or into her brain. He frames an idea or she frames an idea. For example, if you see people who are a bit more ritualistic, a bit more conservative, and if you ask them to come to a party, come to a pub, they may react, come to a pub and me? See, it is something, the reaction is coming, and not because of the age what they're belong to, not because of the type of tendency what they're used to, not because of the person whom you're talking to. Does not have a connection to any of these things. The reaction is coming primarily because he or she must have been told in her childhood or at a later stage not to go to a pub because it is in a pub where you drink alcohol. So the fact is that when you want the person to come to a pub, he or she is going to think that they're asking you to consume an alcohol. Therefore, it is wrong on our mind, on our kind to go to a pub and for drinking. So it's a stereotype that is bringing this kind of reaction from there to you. So stereotypes are normally not recommended, not advised. Please don't carry a stereotype. Do try, be flexible in your mind. Try to adapt to different situations. Based on situation, try to gather facts and then behave. Please don't believe in the stereotypes, right? And Next one is about first impressions. See, we always know that people say that first impressions are the best impressions. Well, whatever we read regarding the perception process, it says that please don't think so. The reason being, first impressions may not be true. Well, for example, you see a beautiful girl walking across the street, right? And she wore a very good dress, and she wore beautiful footwear, a lot of jewelry on her. So automatically you gain a perception that you are looking at a young girl from a distance, and from the kind of appearance what the girl is having, the kind of dress she wore, the kind of jewelry she's wearing, you can get a perception that she belongs to a rich class girl. This is a kind of impression, right? And this impression has come to you primarily because you have seen her at a distance and you registered some facts. Are they true? May or may not be. But these are things what you perceive from your first impressions. But don't jump into conclusions because you received something based on your first looks, right? So let's go to the next category. That's about jumping to conclusions. Well, I can ask you a question like this. What happens to you if your best friend who sits to you next to who sits next to you all the time suddenly stops sitting next to you, suddenly stops talking to you for a few days, and he's keeping all the time silent? So what do you think? You think maybe your friend is hurt, so maybe your friend is not interested in talking to you. A rift has come in between both of you. So, or maybe a clash is going to come, and you'll be very worried. See these things. Did he convey to you? No. You arrived at the conclusion that the person is not happy with you. Your friend is not happy with you. Your friend is having a quarrel with you, and thereby he is trying to distance from you. All these things you assumed, you went into jumped into a conclusion because your friend acted differently. Now, your friend's actions made all the difference. It You arrived at a different conclusion based on certain things which you believed. They may or may not be true. So, thing is that drawing an incorrect conclusion can lead to a problem. So, thing is, don't jump into a conclusion before you start looking at the facts. So, gather all the information, then you can certainly go to a conclusion, right? But jumping to a conclusion is one such type I'm trying to refer to. It's a perceptual type, a perceptual organization, right? And the next one reads as something called as halo effect. What is a halo effect refers to? Halo effect primarily describes situations where the evaluation of a single object or person on a multitude of dimensions is based on the evaluation of just one or a few dimensions. Mind you, people, when I'm trying to explain the Hall effect to people in HR class, I'll be just definitely using the example of when an interviewer is interviewing you. What happens to you if your interviewer starts checking you based on your handwriting? So for example, if somebody is a scribbler, means the handwriting is not good, and during the interview process, the interviewer asks you to write a small story, And because your handwriting is not good, you may try to scribble across, and depending on the kind of tense situation you are in, and the scribbling can be worse, and the handwriting can be even more unreadable. So, thereby, you present a story which is totally unreadable. What happens to you? And if the interviewer strongly believes that he is going to take people based on the story writing or the kind of content writing what he asked for, you will be at a loss. You will be at a terrific loss because the interviewer believed on one perceptual ground, that is handwriting, good handwriting, and story writing ability is what is required for the job. It may be a correct thing, it may be totally incorrect, depending on the kind of job what he's going to hire for. And if he's going to use the same for every interview, then certainly all the people who are attending the interview will be at a terrible disadvantage. Now, this is happening primarily because the interviewer is believing in something called as halo effect. Hope all of you gathered the gist of this. Halo effect is one big phenomena which can create a problem for other people because you are trying to perceive wrongly about a person or about his capabilities, believing on wrong traits. Fine. So this is about halo effect. Now, the last thing, the last grouping which we are concerned with is something called as consumer imagery. What exactly is meant by this? So we can read this as consumers attempt to preserve or enhance self images by buying products they believe they agree with that self image and avoiding products that they do not agree. This is called consumer imagery. Consumers tend to shop in stores that have images that agree with their own self images. So basically, people, yeah, I believe in this concept. I believe in the concept called as consumer imagery, primarily because what we normally do, what we normally act, what we normally perceive is all depending on this kind of consumer imagery. See, try to understand, try to connect to a situation where you are trying to buy some clothes. Where do you go? You are trying to buy some footwear. Where do you go? You want to buy some other things, fruits, something. Where do you go? What is your favorite restaurant? There cannot be multiple restaurants where people are interested in. There is at least one favorite restaurant where normally all of us try to go, right? Why does that restaurant become favorite to you? Because the restaurant is trying to offer to you something which you would like to eat, right? So thing is, that particular restaurant you are always trying to choose and you are trying to suggest to other people, primarily because the restaurant is suggesting the kind of food what you normally love. Maybe they're using a mix of butter, a mix of vegetables which you like, the kind of things what you normally eat. So the kind of atmosphere what the restaurant does has, lighting, the kind of freedom what the restaurant possesses, the kind of spacing between the tables, the kind of environment it possesses, the kind of receiving nature of those people over there, the warmth they show, and the kind of quickness what they show in responding to you, how soon they get the orders, you know, made. These are things which you normally look at if you are trying to choose a restaurant. And these are exactly the things based on based on which you're choosing a restaurant. So people, consumer imagery is one of those wonderful things which all of us use, which all of us are connected to on a daily basis, and which all of us are using without knowing about the word, without knowing how we're using it, but on a daily basis, all of us are using this. So, my dear friends, we learned about two great things in these two classes. One thing is that the last class brought you very relevant concept about perception, the process, the information, how it is searched, how does the information comes to you, what is being stored in the mind, and how it is being recalled at a later stage. All that we have seen in the first session, right? In the second one, we have seen again the kind of steps involved in this, and each one we connected with a particular example. And we have seen how the Gestalt psychology, it's a research center stationed in Germany, and created a wonderful thing called as created a conceptual organization, and which had plenty of types. Mind you, all of us fall into at least one of those categories, at least. And there can be multitude of categories we fall into without knowing. For example, you can be, gaining impressions based on the first look. You can be, you know, jumping into conclusions without knowing it's a bad habit or a good habit. But these are traits what we normally depend on. These are things what we normally use. So at least one perceptual organization is what we're connected to. Hope, my dear friends, all of you understood the gist of this, because in a single video class it's almost nearly impossible to deliver and to bring you a common imagery about all these platforms. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying all of you to bring on to a common platform by giving a lot of examples, and make sure that you are listening to this multiple times of listening, so whereby you're able to gather, register all the facts, and remember the examples. The reason why I'm asking you to remember the examples is primarily because unless you know the example, unless you know how to connect to any one of these things, it becomes too tough to you to understand about the concept, and the logic behind a perceptual organization. See, they sound vague to you. You have to get connected to them. And if you want to get connected, there's no other way than to get used to an example. Relate the concept in example, and it becomes more relevant to you, right? So this is what I want to talk to your friends. Once again, I would like to communicate to you. There's a wonderful video, a small animation video done by me, and the video is regarding halo effect and stereotyping. It's an animation video. You need not look at my picture over there. You can look at some wonderful animation characters. And it was posted today morning in the Google Classroom. So I'm trying to time, I'm trying to make different things to you, which should be of interest to you, which makes learning a fun. I believe in the process, and I'll be coming back to you with a lot of things. For example, I'm loading videos which contains plays, which contains Nautanki, and again dramas, which contain OTT videos, and even small videos made by me are even clip arts. So learning, you can actually use 32 different pedagogues, and I want to put into practice each one of them to make learning a fun, right? So my dear friends, and this is in a session in which I want to convey regarding the perceptual organization and again the process, and hope you have received the content in good gist, and please come back to me with any of your comments, with any questions, in the Google Classroom, and I would like to welcome that. And I'll be answering those queries in the next video session, which I'm going to do. All the best and have a safe time.